I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream, fake media will not touch. You can join us on the radio show. It's free. Every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern. All you have to do is go to davejanda.com, hit the upper right-hand corner of the listen button, and you're tuned in. Great guests, great analysis, information that the bought-off, lamestream, fake media, and the deep state, they don't want you to know about. We also have this YouTube channel, this platform that you're always welcome at 24/7, and we have the website, davejanda.com. We have the free, the public side. We also have the subscription side. I hope you'll look into it. We have information on the subscription side right on the home page. I hope you'll become part of our Freedom family. I want to start today's presentation, if you will, segment briefing with a quote. It's a quote by a guy by the name of Harry Brown. He's an American writer, politician. And it's his take on what government has devolved into. Devolved because this is what the deep state, not just our government, and this is long prior to President Trump, so this isn't a crack at Trump, or specifically Obama. This is from over the decades. Governments around the world, the United States government's not unique. Governments around the world. We have listeners from all over the world on this YouTube channel. And the feedback I get, it's great feedback, is, hey, the problems you're talking about in the United States, we have here in Canada, we have here in Peru, we have here in Ireland, we have here in France, doesn't matter. And the reason is because the people that have come to lead the respective governments are all puppets of the same entity, and that's the deep state. And the deep state has truly transformed, and President Trump calls it a swamp. It's a septic tank. I think swamp's being too kind. So here's what Harry Brown says, quote, "So what is government? Very simply, it is an agency of coercion. Of course, there are other agencies of coercion, such as the mafia. So to be more precise, government is the agency of coercion that has flags in front of its offices," end quote. Well, those agencies of coercion run by the deep state had a really bad weekend. Why? The business model of the deep state is continual war, chaos, conflict, death, destruction, and enrichment of themselves through all of the above. Fact. That's their business model. That's their playbook. That's the Rothschild-Rockefeller Axis manual. And it took a huge hit this weekend. Why? Because of a walk. Yeah. A walk for freedom. I believe what occurred on June 30th, 2019 at roughly 2 a.m. Eastern time will be seen not just for days or weeks or months or years or decades, but for millennia as an incredibly historic event that potentially prevented a world war in the future. The deep state utilizes borders. They manipulate them. They target borders. They tend to do it to create chaos. Just look what's happening on our southern border right now. Just look what they did in Europe last year. We have a lot of subscribers from Europe. They say, oh my gosh, this is, our communities are not the same. We live in fear because the rule of law has been destroyed since our borders were destroyed. That's what they're trying to do here in North America, the deep state. Borders can serve dual purposes. They can enslave people, and they also can be used to protect people. It comes down and it's all about which side freedom is on. The Berlin Wall. I remember when it fell, I'm an old guy, when it fell on November 9th, 1989, I remember people saying on the tube, this is just a short-term event. This isn't going to change anything. And by the way, they're going to put that wall back up. Like good little mouthpieces of the deep state. That's what they wanted you to buy. They didn't want to have you buy into the significance of what led up to that and the event itself and what was about to happen. That was historic. And so was what happened on the morning here in the United States on June 30th, Sunday morning. A guy in a blue suit tweeted a guy in a gray suit, reportedly. And said, hey, let's meet. So President Trump flew from the G20 meeting to the DMC, and the next thing you know, there was a guy in a blue suit meeting a guy in a gray suit. The two leaders of nuclear weaponized countries. They shook hands. They spoke. And then the guy in the gray suit asked the guy in the blue suit to walk across that line, that border that the deep state had constructed, a border of chaos, potential death, destruction, and World War III. That event of President Trump walking across the border was no different than the Berlin Wall falling down. It was freedom. It was a step for freedom. And he walked across, and he shook the guy in a gray suit's hand, and they spoke. And then they walked back across that border into a free land. And they had a meeting. They didn't shoot at each other. They didn't tell anybody to shoot at each other. They talked. Although the poor news press secretary got roughed up a little bit by the North Korean security, but it's a good thing those security guys weren't dealing with Sarah Sanders, though. I think she would have held her own a little bit better. But they spoke. And they set up meetings for not conflict, which is exactly what the deep state wanted, but peace. Peace. Words matter. Remember that. We'll get back to that. This is one of the stories written about the event. Donald Trump has invited Kim Jong-Un to visit the United States. During talks, the Korean Peninsula's demilitarized zone after he became the first American president to step on North Korean soil. Trump tweeted Kim Jong-un suggesting they meet and say hello while Trump was in the region for the G20 summit in Osaka. Trump traveled to the DMC with South Korean leader Moon, while the three had an hour-long trilateral meeting at Peace House. Trump said that the meeting was very historic and criticized those who said nothing had come about from his two previous summits with Kim, which occurred last June and earlier this year. That's right. That walk for freedom would not have occurred without those two previous meetings. Trump announced that new teams would be set up by the three parties to the negotiations. Asked by journalists if he believed that North Korea's previous negotiators were still alive, he replied, "I think so." Well, let's hope so. Walk for peace which was a dagger in the heart of the deep state. It's a step, many steps, in the right direction. But I was transported back to November 9, 1989, because soon after President Trump took that freedom walk, just as occurred in 1989, the boo birds were out there. The neocons, the neo-libs, the whatever you want to call them. How about this? Globalist puppets. This doesn't matter. This wasn't a big thing. This was all show. It was like when the Berlin Wall fell, folks. I'm old, trust me, I remember what they were saying. Same thing. Peace is portrayed in the Mockingbird, bought-off, lamestream, fake media press as a bad thing. Conflict is what we want. Folks believe that there is no rhyme nor reason to President Trump's international diplomacy or policies. Wrong. It's very clear. It's actually very simple. The Trump doctrine is very simple. He uses economic issues. He's a business guy. It's about time we had somebody other than a bought-off politician that's owned by the deep state to be president of the United States, or a leader of a country, or a congressman or a senator or whatever. He's a business guy. He made his bones in business. Deep state doesn't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle it. Good. Yeah, he negotiated all right. He negotiated and will continue to negotiate because he's a business guy. And so is his policies of geopolitics. He used the economic issues, the trade issues with China, to open the door further with North Korea. How do we know that? There was a headline on Zero Hedge on Saturday, June 29th. Ceasefire, U.S.-China trade talks back on track after Trump folds on Huawei. Folds, or just gives them a bone so they could save some face, so they could take the next step, so that he could take the steps across the deep state's line of chaos, that border that they created. The worst-case trade war scenario was avoided in Osaka on Saturday when Trump agreed to restart trade talks with Xi, holding off new tariffs on Chinese exports and signaling a pause in the trade hostilities between the world's two largest economies. Trump added that while existing tariffs would remain in place, the U.S. president eased restrictions on Huawei as part of what is now the second ceasefire between the two superpowers in 2 months. Folks, it's all linked. And words do matter. They matter a lot. Which brings me to the next issue. And I'm not going to dwell on this because I know people get very upset by this. We have our freedom family, and we're all great folks. We're all doing what's needed to do to battle the deep state. But there is a bit of a freedom family disagreement. Now look, disagreements are fine, as long as there's some type of benefit that comes out of that disagreement. The latest disagreement in our family, the freedom family, has been on the illegal surveillance issue. I became involved in discussing illegal surveillance in 2 major time periods in my radio show. The radio show started in October 2010, and one of the first people I had come forward was Paul Rosenberg, who had worked with NASA and the United States military. He's a cybersecurity expert extraordinaire. And when Paul came on the show, our radio station got a lot of blowback. And the reason is because when Paul came on, and remember, this is 2010, he stated that the government was illegally, through the NSA system, illegally monitoring phone calls, emails, internet transactions, and financial dealings of millions of American citizens. Well, many people called the station and said, this Janda, this new show, it's conspiracy theory. They had this guy on. It seemed very nice, but was he paranoid? He was saying that there's our own government, the NSA, and it's rampant, is monitoring everybody. Well, this is paranoia. They should correct the record. What those folks didn't realize is that there were two freedom fighters had already stepped forward in 2001 by the name of Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe, who were very high up in the NSA, who left for a number of reasons, one of which was these platforms are being used for this platform, the NSA, it's bad. I mean, they're doing stuff illegally, criminally on this. That's bad. That was 2001. The other time and we continued that discussion with Paul Rosenberg over the years. And we had other guests discuss it as well. But then there was another avenue that was brought forward on my radio show, and that was on March 19th, 2017, when General Tom McInerney, with the support of Admiral Ace Lyons, came on my radio show on that day and spoke about not just the illegality that was occurring on the NSA platform, but there was a parallel platform that has been outed. And he just mentioned one, the Hammer, that was outed as monitoring emails, phone calls, internet activity separate and distinct from the NSA platform. And the problem with that parallel platform was that, as opposed to the NSA standard, if you will, platform, where there was a reporting system, 702 forms, where there was, as Bill Binney has attested to, because he helped build it, as has Kirk Wiebe, that there is a log system that shows footprints of people saying, looking to unmask people, trying to get information. That there was an entire huge step-by-step process that needed to be implemented. That doesn't mean it couldn't be tried to be jury-rigged or try to have the 702 forms manipulated. No. But what General McInerney and Admiral Lyons came forward saying, there's this parallel platform and there's no reporting system in it. Well, that NSA abuse is horrible. It's illegal. It's criminal. It's terrible. It should never have happened. It's still happening today. It was an article just out today in Zero Hedge. And who did they quote, by the way? Bill Binney. Okay. But there's this parallel platform. It's even more sinister and more evil because there's no reporting system on it. So we presented that on March 19th, 2017. And we had other guests come forward and speak about it. And then, and just prior to that, WikiLeaks dumped a lot of information called Vault 7 of CIA hacking tools, CIA surveillance tools, CIA's means of getting in phones, getting in computers, you name it, getting in any kind of system. And the Hammer was listed there. That's why I felt comfortable when General McInerney and Admiral Lyons came forward with this, that it was good to have it on the show. WikiLeaks has never been proven wrong. They've never had a retraction. We've had cybersecurity experts, now, I don't know, close to a dozen, if not more, look at Vault 7 and say, yeah, the Hammer's in there. The Hammer's there. It says it. And then there was an article that came out, right? I think a day or two before General McInerney and Admiral Lyons came forward, written by Mary Fanning and Alan Jones, about the Hammer, about parallel platforms, based on some tapes videotapes that were released talking about it, that a judge released. Well, a judge releases a tape of these guys talking about the hammer, and in it, they're talking about how Trump was illegally surveilled millions of times, and that 159 court judges, including 2 Supreme Court justices, John Roberts and Antonin Scalia, were 2 of the ones monitored, along with many other government officials and business leaders. I did an interview with Mary Fanning, one of the investigative journalists, this past weekend on the Sunday show, and we released it. So it's the video released on Monday, July 1st. Listen to that interview. Mary, look, the 2 biggest experts that have done the deep dive, that have done, I think, 7, 8 articles now on this, on illegal platform, on surveillance, illegal surveillance, what they're doing, what they're not doing, on Hammer, on parallel platforms, are Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. I don't know of anyone who has more articles, more information out there, more sources, more well-researched, well-sourced. I'm a data guy. My major's in college. Analytical chemistry and economics. I'm data. In medicine, I'm a data guy. I'm a researcher. Look at the studies I've been involved with. They're data-driven. Not, I don't like that guy, so I'm going to say some bad things about him. Because I don't like that guy, everything he's associated with is bad. As Paul Rosenberg mentioned on my show 2 weeks ago, and that audio tapes also we released last week. That's last week's release on this platform. Paul Rosenberg says, look, just because you doesn't like somebody, doesn't mean you just throw everything he has out the window. He goes, if that was the case, where would we be with Churchill? Churchill was an alcoholic. And he supposedly had a bunch of other problems. Does that mean that he wasn't worthwhile in helping our world and our country? My mom was a history teacher. She talked about Winston Churchill being kind of crazy. But he did a lot of good. So Fanning and Jones have done these series of articles. And the hammer was developed by this guy, Dennis Montgomery. Dennis Montgomery's not a saint. Fanning and Jones have never said that. I've never said that. In fact, I get it from both sides. People say, Janda, you're too easy on Montgomery. Okay. And then I have people saying, Janda, you're too hard on Montgomery. You're saying he was involved in illegal criminal activity. Yeah. Illegally surveilling individuals with Brennan and Clapper, with Obama running the show, please. Yeah, I'm going to call it the way I see it. That was criminal activity for all of them. And I actually think it goes all the way up into the Oval Office. We presented that on March 19th, 2017. And continued to develop as more information came out. We continued to do that. And then on May 29th of 2019, an individual went on another platform and talked about the NSA abuses, okay, and then summarily dismissed the hammer and parallel platforms. If you go to the USA Watchdog, and Greg Hunter does a great job, I considered Greg to be a friend. I mean, I did his show a number of times. He did my show a number of times. And this individual gets on there and says, well, it happens all on the NSA platform, not the hammer. In other words, what he said was, it's all, go to the, whatever it is, it's the 27-minute mark of the May 29th interview on Greg Hunter's platform, who does a great job. But it was all NSA, nothing else. And then it's proclaimed that the hammer is illegitimate. And then on my platform was stated that it was a fraud. And that's where words matter, because what then developed over the ensuing weeks, that those of us that have spoken about the Hammer as being a parallel platform, that all of us, that this was illegitimate, non-existent, fraud, hoax, destroy. I mean, just look at the title of one of the videos last week. So-and-so destroys the Hammer hoax. Is that a title? Are those words that are supposed to bring different philosophies together in a family to talk about, okay, what can we do? What can we do? I mean, what do we have here? No, those words are meant, those are triggering. And they're meant to divide. It shocked me. It really did. It really did. And what also shocked me is after that segment aired, and I didn't know that it was going to be discussed on that May 29th interview on USA Watchdog. And, I would have been happy to provide the articles that I've utilized, and General McInerney and Admiral Lies until he died in December of 2018, and that Mary Fanning and Alan Jones and some other folks have. I would have been happy to supply them to take a look and to discuss the information there. But that didn't happen. And it escalated. And if you watch the videos and the audios that I have done, I didn't mention the other platform, and I didn't mention the person making these accusations. I just tried to stick with the facts and try to get more information out. And the individual who made these accusations and used these words of fraud and hoax had been on my show before as well, and on my platform. Last time he was on was May 12th. And I thanked him for coming on the show afterwards. I do with all my guests for taking the time. And he did. And I thanked him, and good listener reaction, and I invited him back for June 30th from 3:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern. He got back to me a couple days later on May 14th, Sunday, June 30th, 3:30 to 4, works for me. Very good. And then in between May 14th and June 30th, there was that interview that it's all on the NSA. Watch it, May 29th at the 27-minute mark. It's all NSA. That's what was said on that platform. Between then and now, a lot happened. There were listeners on my platform that were so put off about what was saying, they said, never, ever have either of these individuals on the platform again because we won't listen. We know the data. We know the articles. You have been showing those for 2 years. Other individuals have been talking about this for 3 years. I have never, ask my IT guy, Nick. Ask the director of our IT service. I have never claimed to be an IT specialist at all. That's why I rely on bringing guests forward like Paul Rosenberg, like Bill Binney, like Kirk Wybe. Bill and Kirk are the two biggest national security surveillance experts in the world, bar none. That is not an overstatement. That's why I brought them forward to you. Take a look at our archives on our YouTube channel, I think 3 or 4 times now. Plus, All our subscribers have access to them on a regular basis. So what I did, I already had this invitation out to this individual as of May 12th, and he accepted on May 14th, and I had a decision. I have listeners tell me, don't bring this guy or the host of the other platform on the platform again. But I already had the invitation out. They didn't know that. So one option was to cancel. And the other option was to put the words aside and to say, okay, come on. Let's have a round table. I'll have one of the experts that's done all this research over all the years on parallel platforms and on the Hammer, and we'll have Mary Fanning there. I sent a note, email, June 25th. I believe when you were last on the radio show on May 12th, we discussed you coming back on the show on June 30th. This was not to the host of the platform. This was to the individual who had made the accusations and the statements. I went on, let's have a roundtable discussion on the issues at hand during the segment from 3:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. I've asked Mary Fanning to join us. Derek, my engineer, will call you on Skype. Thanks, Dave. Response came a little less than 4 hours later, the early morning of June 26, 2019. Never going to happen, Dave. Eventually, you're going to have to do a correction program citing my evidence. And you can retract the hit piece you did on me with Kirk and Bill. Hit piece. On the piece that we had uploaded from the very beginning on YouTube, his name is never mentioned, and there's no picture of him, and there's no audio of him. This is not about, this is not about a person, Dennis Montgomery. This is not about this individual who wrote this. This is not about me. This is about our country. It's about our freedoms, and it is what these criminals are doing to our country. The deep state. But it's always about the person, because guess what? When you point at a person, you can malign them, you can character assassinate them, and then guess what? Everybody's at each other's throats. This line about hit piece. I spoke to Bill Binney, because that's who's cited in here. We did a hit piece. Kirk, Bill, and I did a hit piece on this individual. This is Bill Binney's reaction. This is from yesterday. Quote, I said, can I broadcast it? Absolutely, Dave. Quote, that was not a hit piece on anyone. End quote. Bill Binney, June 30th, 2019. Kirk Wiebe also weighed in. Here's what he said. Quote, the interview of us, Bill and myself, with you, Dave, was a hit piece on false accusations and innuendo. End quote. Kirk Wiebe, June 30th, 2019. Last week, a video was put forward saying that it destroyed the hoax of the Hammer. Unsolicited, Kurt Wiebe watched that video. I'm going to read to you what he sent to me in an email, and he has given me permission to read this. This is Kurt Wiebe speaking. After listening to this individual's latest video about destroying the Hammer hoax, he has taken virtually everything he cites out of context. He generalizes with no regard to sequence of events. He focuses on Hammer when in fact the focus should be on Montgomery's activities with the U.S. government, causing him to be gagged under the State Secrets Act. He implies we called Montgomery a fraud. No, that was Tom Drake, as seen in Drake's email to the Maricopa Sheriff's Office. What was fraudulent was Montgomery's claim, as told to us by two representatives, not Montgomery, that the drives held evidence of Montgomery's surveillance activities. Risen's chapter in his book dealing with Montgomery is all hearsay in opinion, yet the person putting out this video uses it as fact and evidence. The individual putting out the video avoids the issue regarding why Montgomery would be gagged in 2006 by the State Secrets Act. He simply reads a few provisions from the act. And this is the critical part of Kirk's note. It's all critical. This is key. The person putting out the video insinuates that the fact that Negroponte, the director of national intelligence in 2006, who signed the State Secrets Act, said the individual insinuates that the fact that Negroponte didn't mention Hammer is because it does not exist as a surveillance activity. This is wrong. If the individual putting the video out were a guy well-versed in the handling of classified information, he would know that no official government entity is to confirm or deny the existence of a government program. That is the policy across the intel community, and it's called, quote, good security, end quote. Something the individual who put this video out is supposed to know and understand. The person who put out the video also omits the matter of James Baker, former counsel for the FBI, testifying to Congress about the Montgomery matter and handing this over to the FBI. Again, curious regarding the video's author, his resistance, as we are all saying, is Montgomery and his activities should be investigated regarding the illegal surveillance of innocent American citizens, including President Trump. If Montgomery's activities were sensitive enough to have the State Secrets Act invoked, then they are equally as worthy of investigation by John Durham and A.G. Barr. And that is exactly where I have been going with my sources. I have been pushing my sources to push A.G. Barr, to push President Trump into stopping the state secrets privilege that was invoked on Montgomery in 2006. Look, if there's one critical smoking gun, take all the character stuff out of this. Take Dennis Montgomery out of it. His personality. I've never met the guy. I've talked to him a half dozen times over the phone with another person on the line. Why? Why would I have another person on the line? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? This is a guy who sat at a desk with Brennan and Clapper and thought it was okay for a while until something happened. Something happened. This was going on from the beginning of the Obama administration, where, look, the hammer was developed as a surveillance tool to direct, the lens directed on foreign terrorists, on foreign lands. But then when Obama got in there, with Brennan and Clapper, he flipped it and took that lens and funneled it on American citizens. And it wasn't just a little fun thing like, hey, let's see what so-and-so, let's see who he's texting. Let's see if we can, isn't that fun? Little voyeurism stuff? Oh, no. This was all about leverage, blackmail, and bribery. And what they did is they flipped that lens. They flipped that hammer to watch millions of American citizens, including Trump, because it says so on those videotapes we talked about earlier. Yeah, there were videotapes that came out long before I started talking about this in 2017. They were released by a judge, Murray Snow. And based on something that just came out recently, it appears that the people that were speaking about the hammer in parallel platforms, they didn't realize they were being taped. But it was nice of the judge to release those audio tapes and videotapes because it gave all us useless eaters access to information we never would have gotten. But Dennis Montgomery, I'm really conflicted on this guy. Dennis Montgomery sat at a desk with Brennan and Clapper and illegally surveilled people. And then in 2013, guess what? He said, I'm done with this. I'm taking some of these hard drives and getting out of here. Not just 47. A lot more than that, as I understand it. I don't know how many, but I was told by folks I know and trust, more than 47. And he left in 2013. But what did he do? I don't know what he did. Never asked him, actually. I'm not sure what kicked him off to leave. Maybe it was that Obamacare decision by Roberts, because remember, in those videotapes released by Judge Snow, it's noted that Trump was monitored a zillion times, as were 159 judges, including Roberts. Ding, ding, ding. And remember how Roberts, and I talked about this extensively on my radio show and on this platform, how he flipped his vote. Could it have been leverage? Maybe. Something flipped in Montgomery, and he left. And maybe it was that he realized the stuff he had been doing is now affecting public policy on a massive scale. And then in 2014, the guy had a stroke, severe, one and then three more. Was hospitalized between May 14th and July 14th, it's my understanding. And when he got out of the hospital, something happened. He went to the Department of Justice the next month, even though he couldn't use the left side of his body and still can't today because of the stroke. I don't want to bore you with medical stuff, but I am a doc. And I took care of people for 32 years, plus 4 years in medical school, 36 years in the medical profession. The stroke he sustained and the three that followed probably have a mortality rate, a death rate of about 80%. So a month after his stroke, and a month after he gets out of the hospital from his series of strokes, he calls up the Justice Department. He ends up in Washington in a judge's chambers, and he brings a hard drive and he brings 100 documents, as I understand it. The judge's name was Lamberth. He was one of the FISA court judges. Montgomery put a 100-page document in front of him, and the judge looked at him and said, "Before I look at anything, I got to make sure you got a security clearance." He walked out of the room. They checked it. He walked back in. And he goes, "You have a security clearance. You're all fine. Everything's up to date." "Well, let me look at this." And he looked at it. And he said, "My understanding, I've already seen this stuff in my FISA court before. This is real. And guess what? You need to be protected." And it's my understanding, and Mary Fanning and Alan Jones have documented all this in their articles if people would just read them. And that's why I list them on these videos. That's when he started working on a immunity agreement. And it took a long time. And then he turned in 47 hard drives to the FBI. Now, we discussed in my Benny Wybe interview, at one point in 2014, in November of 2014, Benny Wybe and Drake, a guy by the name of Drake, were asked to review stuff from the Hammer. And they found canceled checks and bank records that can only be obtained not scraping the web, but surveillance activity, hacking activity. But as far as what's called packetized data, they did not. Why? Because Dennis de Montgomery could not turn it over. Why? Because of the state secrets privilege that was invoked upon him about 2006. Remember what that document states. If you hand anything over related to source code, software, hardware, anything associated with what you've been doing, you violate the state secrets privilege and you go to jail. And that's why the immunity was so important. Unless he had full immunity, he couldn't hand anything over to the government. And that's why that judge's actions were so heroic and courageous. Judge Lambert. So he now goes to Florida to an FBI field office and he turns over 47 hard drives. It's been said that those hard drives were fraudulent. Well, Wiebe and Binney have stated, they put Drake put out a letter, as Kirk referred to, saying, well, we didn't see anything on these things that was packetized data. But they did have the canceled checks and the bank records. So those 47 hard drives, were they the same hard drives that Binney and Wiebe and Drake looked at? Well, it's been said that they were. Well, where's the proof of that? Because I talked to the guys that looked at the hard drives, Binney and Wiebe. Here's what Bill said. We looked at the hard drives in November of 2014. He looked at some computer stuff, computer screens. Kirk Wiebe and Tom Drake looked at the hard drives. Okay, that was in November of 2014. Whatever hard drives were turned into the FBI on November 19th, 2015, 9 months later. Here's what Bill said, quote, I was not in Florida when the hard drives were turned in. I cannot attest to them being the same ones we looked at. Kirk Wiebe, I cannot attest or confirm that the hard drives we sampled in November of 2014 were the same hard drives that were turned into the FBI in November of 2015, end quote. If he turned over fraudulent information in August of 2015, why did they not arrest him? He was under oath. I mean, my God, they charged General Flynn for one lie to the FBI reportedly, when he reportedly didn't even lie. They charged him. Whoa, you turn over 47 hard drives and you say have this kind of stuff and they don't? You don't think they're going to charge you for that? And what a better way to silence them than throw them in jail. That's better than a state secrets privilege as far as I can determine. They didn't throw him in jail. They didn't arrest him. What did they do? They gave him partial immunity. And they said, we want to review more of this. We want to review this further. And we want to see you back. Okay. 4 months later, they dragged him into Washington again in a secured, compartmented information facility called a SCIF in the FBI. And they interviewed him again for 3 hours under oath, under video. Did they arrest him? Did they charge him with perjury? No. You know what they did? They increased his immunity to full immunity. What? If it was a fraud, why did they arrest him? Why didn't they charge him? Why didn't they throw him in jail? Why didn't they take his immunity away? Why didn't they strip him of his state secrets privilege? Why didn't they strip him of his security clearances, which he still has today? You know what they did? They increased his immunity. All right. And then the general counsel of the FBI, James Baker, was called to testify in front of Congress in October 2018. He testified twice. The first time he testified, I think it was October 2nd, and thank God for Doug Collins, a congressman from Georgia. He released this information. In his testimony, and what that testimony said was the following. Were you involved with the Obama administration in illegal surveillance of Trump and Americans? No. Okay. Comes back 2 weeks later to finish off his testimony, is under oath again, and before he starts, Jim Jordan's about to ask him a question, another great congressman, and he goes, hey, by the way, I got to correct the record. What? Yeah, I got to correct the record. The transcripts are in the Mary Fanning Alan Jones article. The one that talks about James Baker. It's like, I think it's the last one or the second to the last one. They're listed. We have them listed. Baker says, I need to correct the record about, there was some illegal surveillance. What? Of who? of government officials and American citizens by government officials. What? Well, yeah, this guy, this attorney came to me. What was the attorney's name? Larry. Who? Larry? Larry Clayman, and he had a client. The client's name was Dennis Montgomery, who had illegal surveillance information. And I sent a team down to Florida. I sent a team, didn't say to Florida. I sent a team to get the information, and he turned it over. And there was a lot of it. Well, 47 hard drives, if you print everything out, I don't know, it's like 600 million pages of documents or something. It's huge. And what did that information address? It addressed government officials illegally surveilling other government officials and American citizens. This was under oath in October 2018. Why would Baker lie under oath to protect Montgomery? I leave it to you. Here's the bottom line. I'm letting words go. We got a family. Yeah, there's a disagreement in the family. And I'm going to keep doing what I do on my platform, bringing quality information that has been vetted forward. Guests that provide information the bought-off lamestream fake media won't touch. On this platform, YouTube, on my radio show, and my subscription service, here is what I have focused on and will continue to focus on. Number one, how government officials, the same ones we talked about in that first quote from Harry Brown, how government officials have been abusing the rights and destroying the freedoms of American citizens for decades. I'm going to keep focusing on both legal and illegal surveillance on the NSA platform and on parallel platforms. I'm going to keep focusing on the stand down in Benghazi and what it was all about. It goes deeper than the death of 4 American patriots. That's horrible enough. It was all because of an illegal weapons running operation. This has been documented by the Citizens Commission on Benghazi. I'm going to keep exploring and keep presenting information on the murder of SEAL Team 6, about the criminal abuse by government officials of various agencies, NSA, CIA, FBI, IRS, about the fake Russian hack and how it wasn't a hack. It was, in fact, an internal download event. Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe and their investigative team have proven it technologically. Speaking about the fake Russian dossier, about how central banks and how they criminally manipulate financial markets, not just in the United States, but around the world. About the fraud of what's called global warming. About how every American's healthcare freedom has been stripped long before Obamacare, but it really escalated with Obamacare, which was the most inhumane and the most inhumane and unethical means of cutting healthcare costs in our country's history, because it was about the rationing and denying of care, something I have fought against for my entire career. I'm going to be speaking, and have been and will continue to be, on this platform about the hazards and the freedom-stripping policies such as Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 that has been embraced by many United States government officials and by the UN. I am going to continue to present information on the criminal acts, what's called Fast and Furious by the Obama administration. Continue to focus about how the bought-off lamestream fake media and how they're such a tentacle of the deep state and the globalist syndicate, and how such misinformation, disinformation, and blocking of information is done on a daily basis so they can maintain their position in at least my mind as being the mockingbird media. I will focus on how government agencies were weaponized by the Obama administration to destroy this freedom movement. Agencies that were used, such as the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the IRS, and I have some real personal experience with that, when Obama unleashed the IRS in 2013 on me and my family. 9 months. They found no reported income, but what they did find? A family that fought them. Fought them. We're going to expose and continue to expose the deep state business model of the creation of war, chaos, conflict, and destruction. That's what I'm about. That's what this platform's about. That's where I'm moving to. The words, I'm leaving aside. I've spoken my piece on the hammer. I've spoken my piece on illegal surveillance. I won't stop. There is no doubt in my mind that parallel platforms exist, have existed for a long period of time, and they've done tremendous harm to our freedoms. I thank you for your time. This is a very long video today, but I believe an important one. I hope you have a very happy 4th of July. It's hard not to. It's a celebration of freedom. Everything that every one of us holds so dear. And something that the deep state, our enemy, despises. We will win this war. We will win. And in the process, every American's freedoms will be enhanced. Please join us every Sunday, 2 to 5. We're there for you. DaveJanda.com. It's free. Join us here on this YouTube channel. Join us. DaveJanda.com. The free side, the public side. The subscription side, a lot more content, a lot more information. Maybe it's information you don't want, content you don't want, no problem. But we're there for you. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.